May all beings be well, happy, free from all suffering, and be enlightened. Intention of this discourse is to help you understand the first level of enlightenment according to the Buddha's teachings. The first level is the stream entry level, which is called Sotāpanna. At this level of enlightenment, the person is intended to understand that the self is not residing in the physical body. The physical body is made up of all the food you have consumed. Even from the time of conception, when in mother's womb, you have been living on the food consumed by the mother. Food essentially is made up of the four main elements: earth, air, water, and fire. This is why we generally talk about the physical body as being equivalent to the earth or dust. Some say we come from the dust and we go back to the dust. And yes, it is. The physical body essentially is this natural existence, the nature. There's nothing more to it. If a human being gets attached to the physical body as the self, it can lead to so much of suffering, because nothing in nature remains permanent. Everything is continuously changing. Let's consider a flower. From the time the flower is bloomed, what is actually happening is it is decaying or dying. It's withering. It's just that we cannot witness the process of decaying or dying with the physical eye and through the naked eye. One must have wisdom to understand that everything that has a birth is dying every moment, decaying every moment. The very word birth means death. It's almost like the other side of the coin. There is a death because there's a birth. There is a birth because there's a death. And the in-between time, when it comes to the physical birth of a human being and the death, people consider that time as the time of existence or life on earth, which is only a delusion. That delusion is created mainly because of time-space reality. And the mind, nature of the mind is to live along the lines of the time-space reality. It creates a delusion of a continuous existence. Whereas with every breath, the next is out-breath. With every in-breath, there is an out-breath. Means a continuous dying or changing or decaying process. It is inevitable. However, if not enlightened, human beings continue to suffer trying to hold on to things which are continuously changing and never permanent. They get attached to things out of this misunderstanding that things are permanent and things should remain permanent. Things should remain the way I want, but it never ever gonna happen. Consider your physical body. You did not have any control when you were in mother's womb over your physical existence. Initially it was just one cell, and then two cells, and then it started expanding with awareness. So where were you if you didn't have the body when you were in mother's womb? Were you just a singular cell, or were you the awareness of it? Were you the 2, 3, 4 and then the expanding number of cells, or were you the awareness of it? You never had this dense, solid, decaying physical structure before you came into mother's womb. Or maybe you had something like that, so you wanted to continue into another mother's womb. Hence you decided to have another form of physical structure. However, the best way to understand what kind of a structure you would have had before coming into mother's womb is to consider that you were nothing before you coming into mother's womb. But certainly you were something. That's why you had the capacity to come into a physical existence and have the potential to create a physical body, a fully fledged physical body. Now, at the first level of enlightenment, according to Buddha's teachings, the person overcomes this misunderstanding, this wrong conception that I am living in this body, I am the body. The whole idea of I am the body gets destroyed. That weave, that wrongful weave, gets destroyed after listening to a dhamma discourse by a living enlightened teacher. Usually it is said that the person will be enlightened at the first level after listening to a dhamma discourse by a living enlightened teacher. The living enlightened teacher, who is considered as the Arya Sangha from the Noble Triple Gem, the third variable, Sangha, the living bhikkhus who have self-realized and have the capacity to explain the process or the path to enlightenment. So when a human being is looking to liberate themselves from himself or herself from the causes of suffering, continuous suffering in life, they seek salvation from a living teacher. Some seek salvation from a living teacher, but they never meet a living enlightened teacher. Some people so determined to liberate themselves from the causes of suffering in human life, and they put a lot of skilled action into the very intention of being liberated or being enlightened. They put loads of skilled action to a level the fruits and the benefits of such skilled action pay off after a while, and they get an opportunity to meet a living guru or living enlightened master, living enlightened sangha. So in the presence of the teacher, there are two interesting things that happen. The first thing is that the teacher will explain the path or the steps that need to be taken to be enlightened. It is essentially a dhamma discourse using a particular language. Now in this case, I am speaking in English. So someone who is conversant in English and someone who is able to use English as the language that they use to think and speak generally in their life will be able to understand these concepts better, because the brain needs a language, a structure to understand reality. So language is a very important structure brain uses to give meaning to the experiential reality. So when a person meets a living enlightened teacher, they hear the dhamma, the truth about existence. That is dhamma. In simplest word, dhamma means truth about existence. An enlightened teacher is having a pure understanding about the existence of truth. They have self-realized these things. Hence, they are able to communicate them to someone seeking this truth. Generally, an enlightened teacher speaks this truth only when a student appears. The student will ask a question and the teacher responds. This is generally what has been happening over many thousands of years. That is how the teachings of Buddha has been handed over the generations. So the living Sangha or living bhikkhus, the enlightened teachers, are the real messengers of the Buddha. And a skilled student is able to find them and create an opportunity to get in contact with them, then be self-realized. So they also thereafter hold the potential to become a teacher to another person. That's how the knowledge of the Dhamma has been handed over. Sometimes it has been written, however, in the very process of writing down, there can be a lot of distortions. That's why it is always said the first level or the stream entry or the first level of enlightenment, according to Buddha's teachings, happens in the presence of a living enlightened teacher. One must also, during that process, pay attention to the Dhamma discourse with complete attention, without any distractions, without falling asleep, without feeling suspicious about the teacher, without overanalyzing or arguing, without getting attached to the teacher, or without having hatred or animosity or resentment towards the teacher. The student should be so skilled that he or she should avoid doing those things, to getting attached to the teacher or the contents of the teaching, and then feeling detached and resenting or feel agitated towards the content of the teacher's discourse, then having doubts and suspicion about the teaching, then having sleepiness or like feeling lethargic, and the attention span is short, not being able to pay attention fully to the teacher. So there will be a lot of distortions during the Dhamma discussion. So skilled student avoid that as well. A skilled student should have earned its merits much earlier, performing many skilled actions. That's why it is said very few people would come into even to this first level of enlightenment, which is called Sotāpanna, or the stream entry level. However, that is the breakthrough place. That is the first level where everything about existence begin to get into right perspective, the right view. So the first thing at the stream entry that you will realize about your own existence on earth is that you are not the body, or I am not the body. I'm not this physical body. Initially, this understanding is only conceptual. The person understands that conceptually it's very clear, absolutely certain. The word is absolutely certain that I am not the body. Although I experience my life, thing called life on earth, through this physical structure, I am not the body. My body is only accumulation of food that has been consumed over a period of time. It has its own intelligence because it's part of nature, but I am not the body. This understanding becomes a permanent shift in the consciousness. Let me repeat it to you. This understanding becomes a permanent shift in the consciousness of the person at this first level of enlightenment, which is called Sotāpanna. It is only the weave or the perception that gets corrected. Initially, there was a perceptual error that I am the body. So all the suffering the body goes through, the person gets so identified and creates a sense of separation from existence and nature and others because of this physical structure, try to protect it, overprotect it, and become quite egoistic about it, and then bound to suffer a lot because the body never sustains or remains the way you want. It certainly is decaying from the time it was created. Every moment it's decaying. It's degenerating. Although outside skin covers the content of the real nature of the body, if someone has the capacity to see through the skin, they will see that it is not very nice. It's not a pleasant sight to see what the content inside. It's because there's a thing called a cover, and the skin, it's kind of beautifully, the real truth is hiding behind this skin. That's why according to the Buddhist meditation practices, when one develops the wisdom to see through the skin and see through the physical structure, they suddenly realize there's absolutely no point getting attached to this body. So similarly, I'm not getting attached to my body. Similarly, I won't get attached to other people's body as well, because they are the same as me. They are decaying, degenerating. It is like earth or dust. And the body is essentially made up of the food, and the food essentially comes from trees, and trees are part of nature, and that is essentially the four elements: earth, water, fire, and air. There's nothing more to this physical body than that. Of course, along with the water, fire, earth, and air elements, there are other four important elements associated with it. So altogether 8 elements. That is the color. Whatever the four, if something is made up of 4 elements, it has a color and it has a taste, and also it has certain smell and also energy. Now that's why people consume food. All living beings consume food because they need energy to sustain life on earth. Sometimes you may consume food from a 5-star, 6-star, or even a 7-star hotel, but still feeling not having enough energy in the body. Now one must now then begin to question, if I am the body and I consume all the great food, why I'm not feeling so energetic? There should be a problem with this whole thing called I am. If I am made up of the things that I consume, it is not so. So then at the first level of enlightenment, one fully, I repeat, is a permanent shift in the consciousness. A permanent shift means this person will never go back to the delusion of thinking I am the body, or someone else When they look at another human being or an animal or living being, they are also their body. They'll be able to see through that concept of body, and they will understand it's just nature. It's the 4 elements, and the other 4 elements that is going along with the 4 elements, all together 8 elements. Everything in nature, the physical structure made up of those 8 elements. It's earth, air, fire and water, and the color, taste, smell and energy. So the self will not delude itself thinking it's this 8 elements. It's just 8 elements. It is changing, it's decaying, its very nature is to be destroyed anytime. It's very fragile and it's very vulnerable. I am not the body. This is a permanent understanding. So when a person attains the Sotāpanna, or the first level of enlightenment, there's a huge amount of liberation, a massive sense of liberation from the causes of suffering, because the first evidence of existence of a being, when it comes to a human being and all living beings, is that the first level of evidence is the body, right? The physical structure. So imagine the mind or the self, the person inside, liberates, sets itself free from the idea that I am the body. That's a massive freedom. So even if the body is decaying and going through the process of death and sicknesses, loss of things that he or she likes, loss of loved ones, and all that naturally happens to anything in nature, whatever happens to the body, this person will be able to free himself or herself from the extreme suffering, because this person understands, I'm not the body. And the very nature of the body, or the 8 elements, is to go through a continuous process of degeneration, and it's never going to remain permanent. So this person understands. So therefore this person will not try to hold on to things out of greed, out of lust, even out of anger. This person will not get attached to things. This person will comfortably enjoy the body, comfortably take care of the body during the lifetime on earth, and also will treat each other, all other living beings also, with due respect and care, knowing very well the very nature of the body is to decay every moment, and it's part of nature. It doesn't belong to me, and I don't have to possess it. I don't have to overly get attached to this body, which is essentially a piece of garbage if you look at. So let's consider a lotus blooming and the mud, essentially. If you look at beautiful lotus coming out of water and blooming into its fullest glory and shining, and not even dust rest on those petals, because they are so fragile, so soft, so pure. Even the lotus leaf, if you look at, the water does not stay on the leaf. It's like water resistant, but actually the leaf and the flower came from water, came from mud. So an enlightened living human being will be like that lotus. It never denies that it is part of the mud. Means the decaying, ugly, degenerating, unpleasant, muddy nature of the body is there. It is very well understood, and it also, so it does not hate the body, the person does not hate the body, just like the lotus. So the person understands that I am part of dust, this garbage, but I use garbage to bloom into my fullest potential. My soul essence, or my spiritual self is free from the mud, when I self-realize. So this is exactly, I think this is the most beautiful way to explain enlightenment, taking the metaphor of a water lily or a lotus that is coming out, arising from the mud and blooming into its fullest potential, fullest beauty, and then serving the world. Never hating the mud, never denying its existence is in the mud. So it's fully anchored in the mud and the garbage and the dirt. However, it's evolving because it has learned to detach its identity from the mud. So same thing happens at the first level of enlightenment. The person self-realize after listening to a dhamma discourse of a living teacher, enlightened teacher, and then the first misunderstanding, misconception, completely, the delusion gets like completely broken. It's just like the sun is rising and the darkness dispels on earth. So when the sun rises, there's light and the darkness is no longer there. So people so worry about the darkness. It's dark, I cannot see things. To see that there's nothing called darkness. It is only the absence of light. So when the sun comes up over time, over the hours, of the minutes, then suddenly it dispels the darkness. So during a Dhamma discussion, the sunlight is like the wisdom that is shining through the living enlightened teacher and then projected to the student who's ready to receive that light, who's willing to open their eyes of wisdom to the truth of existence. The second thing that happens in the presence of a living enlightened teacher is the energy of that teacher gets into the student. That's why we say one will be enlightened, or at the first level will become a stream enterer, or Sotāpanna. The first level will happen in the presence of a teacher, ideally after getting in contact with a living enlightened teacher, because the student has now got the opportunity to eyewitness, meet a person who has self-realized. So that itself is a big deal for a human being to learn that it's possible for me also to be enlightened. It opens up all possibilities, and the teacher holds energy. Teacher is self-realized. So teacher, essentially, if you look at even teacher's body, it's just like the student's body. There's no difference because they are all also made up of those 8 elements that we discussed earlier. So the 8, having said that, the teacher is self-realized, so teacher is detached from the body, still living in the body, just like that lotus is blooming. Teacher has come into full understanding, has come into full terms with the very nature of the body. So it is the teacher is using the body to its fullest capacity, not identifying with it. And when it comes to a teacher like that, who's self-realized, who has detached from the physical identification with the physical body, there's so much of energy, positive energy, healing energy in the presence of a teacher. So when the student come into contact with this living teacher, suddenly the energy gets, expands into student's consciousness, and the student can get enveloped by the presence of the teacher's energy. Just like, you see, someone was very unhappy and then feeling agitated and stressed out. This person suddenly take a walk into a park. The mind is so disturbed, feeling very worried about, let's say, future, something the person has been waiting to experience, and he or she is quite worried about the future, or maybe this person has been disappointed about something that has happened in the past. So this person suddenly, however, feels guided and to walk into a park, and then there's a lake, and then suddenly witness a beautiful white lotus. And this white lotus is into its fullest glory. The sun is shining, there's cool air breeze, and the lotus is dancing, rising out from the mud in the thin air. It's dancing. It's beautiful. Sometimes just by seeing this lotus, just by seeing, coming into contact, this person's eyes getting into contact with the lotus itself can begin to heal this person's inner. The person might begin to feel at least at ease. So same thing happens when a student meets a living enlightened teacher. The very presence transforms the individual consciousness, the student's consciousness. So in this brief Dhamma discourse, our intention was to help you understand very briefly the first level of enlightenment, according to the Buddhist way of explaining enlightenment, is to be detached from the idea that I am the body. Initially, this is only conceptually, means as a mental structure, a mental model that or a belief that I am the body. It gets fully destroyed. Initially, it's only a very a cognitive process, but it's a permanent shift in the awareness to a level the person thereafter gets the opportunity to experience it, fully experience in any moment that I'm not the body. Those are those metaphysical experiences, and in Zen Buddhism we use the word satori. Some beautiful moments of truth people get the opportunity to experience after understanding that I am not the body. For certain people, it happens the other way around. As in, for certain people, they suddenly get those moments of truth or glimpses of the truth about existence. Accidentally, they have out-of-body experiences and different metaphysical experiences that confirms I'm actually not in this body. It's a delusion. Later on, these are the kind of people then gets this spiritual quest, and then they keep seeking the meaning behind that experience, and then later on they get the understanding from a teacher or even a book sometimes, or it could be just a video that information, conceptual information confirming what the person has experienced. Once in a while, very rarely, such things also happens. Either way, what happens at the first level of enlightenment is that there's a permanent shift in the consciousness that I am not the body. So the person is free from all causes of suffering at that physical level. Whatever the body goes through, suffering, the person is quite detached. Even when it comes to pleasant experiences and, let's say, pleasures, the person is able to enjoy the pleasures but quite detached. So there won't be cravings for further pleasure. That way the person is liberated from further suffering. And these beings will treat other human beings and other living beings also with the same understanding. So they are very peaceful people. They are nice people to be with. They are actually the healers of the Mother Earth. They are healing because they are not attached to the physical reality. Therefore, they will begin to not destroy the earth further or the physical reality, but the true healers of the physical reality. So if someone really wants to heal the earth, heal the universe, heal the country or the Mother Earth, they got to be enlightened. That is the first level of enlightenment, which is detachment, complete detachment from the physical identification, the self getting identified with the physical reality. That detachment gives the freedom to look at reality from a higher perspective. This is amazing feeling. This is a beautiful sense of liberation, and that's the first level. And after this has happened, this person is no longer having any doubts about the path he's taking to be enlightened. So there's no doubt Having no doubt is a big deal in human life. This is called faith. We identify this faith as like unchanging. It is an unchanging faith about the fact that I am on the right path, and I have self-realized about the truth about existence. It's a permanent faith. It won't sway. It is unchanging. The person becomes very powerful with this faith. There's no doubt about his or her path. There's no doubt about his or her identity on earth or in the physical reality. In fact, it is this path this person has taken now, it's only opening up bigger truths about existence. That's why we call that the first level of enlightenment. There's much more to be realized, and this is the first level where there's a permanent shift in the awareness to a level there's absolutely no doubt about the path this person is taking. And with that kind of unchanging faith, 100% faith about the path this person is taking, which is the Buddha's path actually. Because here we talk about the first level of enlightenment according to the Buddha's teachings. So the person realizes, oh, this is the path, and I'm absolutely certain I have to go on this direction if I want to be further liberated from the causes of suffering. This first level of enlightenment actually helps the person to be further and further and further be liberated from causes of suffering that is inherent when a being comes into existence, or when someone is born. There are this inherent suffering every moment, because nothing is permanent and everything is changing, and the very fact that everything is changing and decaying is suffering. Especially if the person having a misunderstanding about that existence has to be permanent and has to remain the way I want, this person will bound to suffer continuously, no matter where they are, no matter the amount of money they have, regardless of the age, gender, caste, religion, the background, the physical comfort they are in, because they are living in that delusion that I am the body. So without breaking away from it, there won't be any enlightenment as such. Enlightenment is, the first enlightenment is to be free from suffering, free from delusion, to know the light, to know the truth. And the first darkness or the first delusion is that I am the physical reality. No, one must break through that, completely break free from that. Then I realize, yes, I have got a great opportunity. I'm blessed to have a physical reality to experience with these great things on earth, but I'm not the body. I appreciate it. Just like the lotus, appreciating and never denying and rejecting or resenting that mud is part of its glory. This human being, enlightened human being, is a very blessed one that always lives in appreciation, because it knows very well it is not the body. At the same time, it knows that it is aware, it is alive, and it is living, it is self-aware, because it has a body. So try to reflect on this content. Do not just listen once, listen to this content even more, like few more times, until the content gets fully digested by you. Ideally, someday you got to meet a living enlightened teacher. Everyone generally has a living teacher that is palatable or quite matching to their energy. It is you don't know when that will happen, but anytime it can happen. So have the desire and the peaceful and a positive intention towards meeting a living teacher, a living enlightened teacher. But before that, if you're someone listening to this content, it's important you understand these basic truths about yourself, your existence. A brief meditation guide for those who are listening is that you can, from today onwards, begin to have this thought quite often running in your mind, is that I am not the body. Just keep repeating that word, those words several times during the day. Especially when you're not engaged doing certain activities, when you're kind of idling. The mind's nature is to idle and try to get attached to different objects outside. So the best way to calm your mind is to use certain words and sort of hook its attention to these words. So you can use it as a meditation, like silent sitting meditation as well, for a few minutes every day, continuously reflecting on the idea, I am not the body. I am not the body. All right, okay, thank you for listening, and may the Noble Triple Gem bless you.